Joe, look what I got.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
What about 2?
That'll do it.
Oh, sorry for the audio, but I had to get the ones with sound. Anyway.
Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your co-host, Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
Andor, the show no Star Wars fan wanted. And it turned out to be the show we didn't deserve. Ryan and I review the full series. Spoilers ahead. You've been warned. Zooming into our medium shot now. Tell me, Ryan, what was your anticipation level going in for Andor?
None. I planned on not watching this show whatsoever. It's not because I didn't care about Rogue One. I just didn't really find most of those characters interesting, especially Cassian. I remember in Rogue One, he had a really cool opening at the beginning where he just completely executes a fellow rebel at the beginning, if anybody remembers that. But it wasn't, and then they were like, oh, we're going to do a whole show around this character. I was like, seriously? Okay. Sure. And then, I honestly, I waited till recently this week to watch all of them. I just kept putting it off. I was doing other things. I was playing God of War. So I wasn't too hyped about it. And then I kept seeing on the internet how people are saying it's the greatest Star Wars thing to come out since the originals. And I watched it, and I kind of agree. So, yeah.
Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars film to come out this last decade. Though Cassian wasn't even my favorite character in that movie. He was a supporting cast member in a Star Wars spin-off. And now he's got one of the best Star Wars projects of all time. I don't even know how that works. But how would this guy carry his own show? I thought at the time when I first heard it, I didn't know or especially care. But I'm a franchise completionist, so I felt I had to give it a try no matter what. And maybe that's bad of me. I don't know. It's why I get sucked into so much garbage just because I'm brand loyal. And then I have to come onto this show and whine about it most of the time. And Ryan's like, you're such a cynical bastard, you. But not this time.
Meanwhile, I'm going to be the cynical bastard this time. It's interesting.
We never agree. It's a running gag, but it's true.
I think it's good. Okay, here we go. It's good. All right.
And now on to our close-up. It's good, you say.
Yeah, I think it's good. It took me a while to really get into it, especially after that second episode where it was literally only 30 minutes and it didn't feel like anything happened whatsoever. And I was just...
Those first two were the hardest to get through. I nearly...
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't going to not watch the show. Like I said, I'm a completionist, but it did not put its best foot forward. It helps that they released all three, the first three together. So by the time it all pays off in the third, and the third was one of my favorite hours of Star Wars of all time, and I thought the payoff was worth it. But those first two getting there were a little rocky. Not going to lie.
Yeah, it's just really interesting when you have a show that isn't really that well advertised, and I kind of blame Disney and Disney Plus for it. Because when you have something that's been so critically acclaimed by almost every single fan on the planet, and you're trying to find it on Disney Plus, you have to go through like 12 pages or something at the very top, and scroll through at least one page near the bottom, even on the Star Wars main page. So it just doesn't really make that much sense, so it's not that well advertised.
It's like they're trying to tank it.
That's why...
It's like
it's weirdly... Maybe the Disney execs haven't even watched it, who's ever run the site.
No, I know they haven't watched it because you know why I know they haven't watched it?
Why?
Because it's good. They didn't try to shove any studio notes down our throats, try to force cameos in or whatever, or their political agendas or whatever people they think audiences will like in a Star Wars thing, which we obviously don't, hence why you get constant criticism over and over and over because you keep trying to push the same stuff and it's not working. Clearly they just let good creatives do what they will with Andor and kind of left them alone, which thank you. Just do that.
Yeah,
Do
well,
more of that.
it's funny because it's probably one of the best Star Wars things to come out because the director and the writer who
Tony
the name
Gilroy.
is escaping me. Yeah, but he also did Rogue One, so he's just passionate about this era of Star Wars and this certain character as well. So you can feel the passion through the screen as you're watching it. So by the third episode, I was like, okay, that's a good episode. And by the fourth and fifth one, I was like, okay, I now need to accept what this show is and what this story is trying to tell, because it's not you can't go into this expecting it to be like the movies or the other television shows where it's super whimsical and it's all about the magic and the force and stuff. It's literally about
It's a
yeah.
slow-paced political thriller about fascism and people rising up to combat it. It's about people changing who they are to cope with a very dark time in the galaxy. It's about complex belief systems. There's no Jedi or Sith. There's barely any action in it. It's Star Wars for adults. It's basically just for all intents and purposes, it's a standalone sci-fi show, which if you've never seen a Star Wars thing in your life, you can watch this and it's a good show about how fascism by its very nature encourages rebellion to slip through the cracks. Which is
it's
kind of
just
skipping ahead to the ending there, but that's one of the best speeches in Nemec's monologue is how he's talking about the tighter they grip on the galaxy, the more it'll slip through the fingers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those shows where you really have to pay attention and really listen because just the dialogue is so smart. There was times where I couldn't understand the political babble that was going on, especially with the Mon Mothma stuff. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means there's stuff going on behind the scenes that you don't need to show. And I kind of compare it to Game of Thrones a little bit, where it's a lot of world building in a pretty well-established universe, but it's establishing these characters that live in this world who none of them are Jedi, none of them are going to become Jedi. They're just regular people trying to live in this fascist galaxy and deal with the repercussions of that. And I thought it was really well done.
It's one of those kind of things where I just completely lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's about the regular people, which is very important because Star Wars in general tends to focus on the larger than life characters, Darth Vader, your Luke Skywalkers, your Obi-Wan Kenobis, guys like that. But this is about the little guys. You have, Cassian Andor, who's just a regular old mercenary. Guys like Vel and Cinta, who are just a couple rebellion devotees who are willing to do what's necessary to get the Empire off their backs. You have guys like Luthen, who we literally have no idea where he comes from, but he's just a dude who...
What's up with his stick?
Some people think it's a lightsaber. Some people think it's...
That's the one thing that bothered me in... I don't know if it was like an acting choice or directing choice, but he's got a stick in the second episode that he's walking around with. But it's not like... I don't know. That just confused me. It just felt like it was pointless. But then they make it a point in a later episode to kind of examine the piece as well. So I assume it might get answered in season 2 as well. But I was just like, what's up with that stick? What is the point of it?
Well, you're asking good questions. Maybe they'll answer it. But yeah, it's about the little guy, which is important. Even not even necessarily the littlest of guys, but even people on the level of Mon Mothma. We get to see what the political struggle behind the Empire looks like. She has to put on this two-faced front of being a bleeding heart senator who opposes the Empire's fascism, and they're like, oh, look at Mon Mothma donating to her social causes and stuff. Meanwhile, she's donating to arm rebellion against the Emperor, but okay. And then we even have people like Bix, who are just junk traders giving the rebellion scrap she finds whenever she can get it. We have guys like Cyril Karn, who are just security corps officers who clean up the Empire's mess when they don't want to send the stormtroopers or anybody actually legitimate. So it's just the day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
cops even we see. The guys who bang on the bell tower. The guys
He
who...
was great. He got me through the second episode. That Bell guy,
When
because
he
he's
Sparta kicked that guy off the tower at the end was amazing. I clapped.
beautiful, hilarious. He's the definition of the guy who is, you know what? He might have a shit job, but I'm gonna have the most fun out of it as possible. That's the
Yeah.
best. He did a great job, and I have to say, because we'll get into more of this, but the Karn's security outfit before the Imperials come in, like Ferrex's security outfits. Oh my god, those costume designs are brilliant. I love that. If I was able to buy like a Star Wars outfit for cosplay that wasn't about the Jedi or a Stormtrooper, it'd be one of those. I thought they looked amazing. Just the orange and the blue like clashing together.
All the production design elements on this show are incredible. The costumes, the sets in particular blew me away. I heard they built the entire town of Ferrix brick by brick up, and it makes such a difference when you look at shows like The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett or Kenobi. They look like literal garbage next to a show like Andor,
It's
just visually.
insane. I was watching like a side-by-side comparison where, because I didn't think Kenobi looked that bad, but there's one shot where she who must not be named, I'm kidding, Riva is standing in front of a bunch of troopers to attack Kenobi outside of a gate, and I was like, oh my god, you can tell they're literally standing in nothing compared to this. It was insane, because at the time, I thought it looked fine, like I couldn't tell they were in the volume, but compared to Andor, holy shit.
This is
The
actual
sets
filmmaking.
are amazing. Yeah.
It makes
It's
it
like
feel...
they hired the guys, it looks like they hired the guys who did like the Disney parks, but paid them like tens of millions of dollars to build these sets.
I hope this becomes a Disney park. Oh, wait, kids wouldn't watch this.
Oh.
Never mind. No, it's for the adults. You go to the end, or you go to the Ferrix section for adults. The kids can go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But yeah, the work that went into this show astounds me, really. I think the physical sets go a long way to making it feel like Star Wars again. And I'll give the sequels credit for this. They did do a lot more like that. And like Rogue One did as well. It's really just a problem for their TV shows. But going back to the original trilogy, those sets made it feel like a dirty, abused world, which is kind of part of the charm of Star Wars. And that's what a lot of people complained about the prequels getting away from. It was more green screeny. It was more bright and shiny. It felt more artificial, which I'm going to defend that and say that it was a better time for the galaxy. Things were a little less dirty and grimy at that point. So whatever. But this feels like original Star Wars It feels like it actually had a budget, you know? And people
also
actually
with the
tried.
green screen and also with the green screen and blue screen, I think ILM was kind of really into, or George Lucas himself was really into the digital stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So he was just able to be like, yeah, let's make this as, well, this sounds bad, like as cheap as possible, but also try to make it like look good as possible as well.
Well, he was all about pushing the
some
boundaries.
of those, especially in Revenge of the Sith, some of those set pieces are pretty good.
For sure. They were groundbreaking at the time, and you can complain about them for what they are, but don't deny that they didn't change the film industry. Complain about Jar Jar Binks all you want, but he was around before Andy Serkis went in as Gollum and, did the motion capture thing. And let's talk about Andy Serkis for a sec. Smooth transition.
And Jar Jar Binks didn't talk as much in the later sequels to the prequels. Anyway. But yeah, Andy Serkis.
Holy crap.
Yes! I'm just so happy he's just allowed to act as a human. Because he's just been spending spent the last 20 years as a character actor, where he's practiced and learned every muscle in his face. So he just knows how to put on a fantastic performance. Talk about his end in the second, but I just thought, man, because I was struggling between a few episodes before him, not too hard, and then he showed up. I was like, fuck, he just brings a whole new life to it. He's got a fantastic voice as the manager, and his little character arc in those 3 episodes are beautiful. It's
Yeah.
amazing. The prison arc in this show, I think, is probably the best one, which is weird to say.
Yeah.
Because some of the stuff outside of it's not, well, not compelling, but not as compelling. I don't know. I don't have issues with the show. I just have small critiques. I still love it.
Yeah.
I
Which
still
we'll
think
get
it's a great show.
Nothing is perfect.
But
and we'll get to the criticism
I just
in a second. But it broke my heart when everyone's getting the end. One way out, one way out. And then Andor's calling for him. Come on, I can't swim. What?
Yeah. And I think he would have probably tried to say like, oh, well, I'll carry you, whatever. But he gets knocked into the water. And then we just don't know what happens to him.
Beautiful.
I hope to see more of him later on. But I was listening to another podcast and they said it perfectly where the creators are just showing you what Andor sees. So we don't really know what happened to the other prisoners. And this is quote unquote realistic, where instead of in a show like Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett where someone can get shot 5 times and still get up, if someone gets shot here, they're dead. They're just straight up dead.
That torture was very
also
insidious in the prison. Yeah. They don't even tie them down. They don't lock the doors or anything. It's just lights go red, get off. That's it.
Yeah. And it's just like another thing with, in terms of, you just don't know what happened. Sometimes you meet a person and you get along for a while and then you go your separate ways and you just never know what happens to them. That's just life. And you're like, you hope Andy Serkis is okay, but chances are he's probably not. So I would love to see him in season 2, but also would really respect the creators if they just never brought him back.
Fun fact that character he escaped with, Melshi, is actually a character, a minor character in Rogue One. If you didn't know that, the guy he escaped with there from the prison is actually in the Battle of Scarif at the end of Rogue One. He's in a couple shots, so now we know a little bit about that guy, Melshi. Which is very subtle,
very
but
interesting.
But I love that. He's just a minor character who I don't even know if he had a speaking line in Rogue One, but they go a long way to fleshing that out. Now, I talked about cameo appearances before and how they didn't shoehorn them in, but not to say there weren't cameos at all, because there were a couple. Another one from Rogue One.
Few.
There's him, and another one was Saw Gerrera, but that made sense. These cameos make sense to me. I think Genevieve O'Reilly was Mon Mothma in Rogue One as well, wasn't she?
I don't know if she was the one in Rogue One, but I know she was in a deleted scene in Phantom Menace playing Mon Mothma. I think that's in a sequel.
In Revenge of the Sith, yeah. I think that's why I remember her in Rogue One, was because I'm like, oh yeah, it's her from the deleted scene. So I think she was in Rogue One as well. And
let me check real quick.
So she's kind of a cameo as well. So we got her and Melshi and Forrest Whitaker as Saw Gerrera. But these cameos all make sense. They're very integral to the story. They're not just, oh, blink and you'll miss it. Oh, just for the fans, and everybody else is left in the dark. Like, it's kind of beating a dead horse, but The Mandalorian Season 2 did a lot of that. I didn't mind it as much as a lot of people, but there is a pretty stark difference in how these cameos are treated within the story itself. They're used more to actually further the narrative and don't feel as much like, oh, remember them and their story? And let's just get points for that. And that's basically all there is to it.
Mm-hmm. It is the same actor, by the way. You were right. I didn't know if it was the same one or not, because I recognized her by, I guess maybe because the hairstyle was a little different in Rogue One. I really thought Jimmy Smits was going to show up.
I hope he's in season 2. And that would be
because I love him.
That would be a natural extension, because Mon Mothma doesn't really have any political allies. So I think naturally it makes sense that in season 2, she tries to find other political allies in the Senate, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which Bail Organa does.
Her daughter's such a little shit. And I know it's like part of the story.
So is her husband.
That's true. But I don't understand. Oh, I guess maybe it's because just like, oh, she's a teenager. But like, she just hates her mom. Maybe she knows because, well, on some level, she knows she doesn't care for the Empire. And because she's very outspoken in the Senate. And maybe the daughter doesn't like having that spotlight on them. So that's why she keeps going back to their old ways where they're from, and is being betrothed to
Yeah.
scumbag Elon Musk.
The dad is pretty pro-Empire too. So I'm sure
Yeah.
her daughter gets a lot of influence from that as well. It's a
What does
very
the
weird
dad do? Is he just stays home and drinks?
Probably. He's kind of a
What does he have
trophy
to-
husband.
What does he have to complain about? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a gambling
Complains way too
problem
much.
apparently.
Apparently, we find out in episode 12 or whenever it was.
But I kind of like how we found that out because she's just
Mm-hmm.
we don't even know if she's telling the truth. She kind of just throws that out and we're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, she's
like
throwing
we're
her husband under the bus." Awesome.
She probably is.
Well, I
I
mean,
love
the way
how
he
the,
reacted to it.
Mhm.
He reacted to it
He's like,
basically
"Tell me
like,
who it
"Oh, I haven't
was."
done that in so long."
Tell me who it was. Tell me who it was. I'll tell you they're a liar. Like, he's
Yeah.
not really denying it. He's just saying, Anyway, it's such a small moment. There's so many other moments we need to talk about.
One of my favorite Mon
But I love
Mothma
how
moments that I think it was episode 3 or 4. One of the moments that sold me so much on the show was that one where she has her friend and they're walking through the party and her friend's like, "Oh yeah,
Mhm.
well, I don't think you'd have the stomach for the politics I'm into." And she's like, "Just keep smiling." And they're walking
Yeah,
through
yeah.
the party. That was a beautiful scene. That
As,
sequence is so
that's really good, yeah.
intense and riveting and great dialogue there. And that's one of the moments that sold me on this show. I'm like, oh, they really care about the intricate politics and everything, and just the, it's serious. It's tense. It's great. It's so well written and shot. Just the craft in a
'Cause they can't
minor
expose
dialogue scene, like
themselves.
just the care they show to even minor dialogue scenes like that is just
Exactly.
made me fall in love with the show.
And the that actor is Peter Townsend in the first couple seasons of The Crown.
Oh
If anyone remembers.
yeah.
There's funny enough, there's a few Game of Thrones actors in this show, which is really funny. When you when you have the best actors in the world when they're on Star Wars, they're in Marvel, or they're in Game of Thrones, or sometimes 2 out of the 3 or 3 out of the 3. It's really funny.
Or Harry Potter. A lot of them are in Harry Potter as well.
Yeah, a few of them. Oh, and that kid on The Heist, he plays like, if you've ever seen the Imitation Game, he plays the younger Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, really?
This is a weird skill I have. I don't know why. I just recognize an actor, and I'm like, what were they? I've seen them before. And my brother's called me out on it before. He's like, how the fuck do you know this? Like,
I'm bad at that.
I've just seen movies, man.
I do recognize them a lot of times, but I never place where they're from.
Yeah, the other actor who had the tattoos on The Heist, who like put a knife to Andor's throat. I recognize him. I just couldn't figure out where he was from.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
he was really good too.
I love how
So how should we
Andor.
do? Should we go?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I love how Andor kills him in cold blood too at the end. It's
Oh,
one of his. It's one of his
like-
turning points. Oh, you can come with me, steal the money, and let's just go. And then
Bang.
yeah,
Brilliant, because I was like, I would do the same thing.
that was his
'Cause
turning point.
What's gonna happen? Because what's gonna happen when they take off, right? And they're gonna have like an alone time. He's just gonna shoot
Yeah.
Andor at one point.
Actually, in terms of writing, that's a brilliant point because I think that happens at the end of episode 6, exactly halfway through the show.
Yeah.
That's his turn when he finally decides to stop being a self-centered
Mhm.
prick. And I love how when he goes back to Ferrex and talks to Marva, he doesn't even he doesn't tell her about Aldani, and then she dies and he's upset because he thinks
Oh,
that
that's right.
she
Yeah.
he thinks that she thinks that he was an asshole who was just selfish his whole life, and he was upset that she never knew. And yeah, that broke my heart. He's kind of a mama's boy, which I didn't expect, but it humanized him pretty well.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see all that. And God, I'm still not the biggest Cassian fan. I don't think this first season really turned him around for me. But it was moments like that where, especially at the opening scene where he executed that guard,
And cold blood on the
and
streets.
when he
What a
executed that other
beginning.
guy.
Great beginning.
I was like, yeah, these are great choices. I'm still not on board with him some of the time. I just didn't buy. God, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because just the other actors were so well written that I just expected Cassian to just have like a little bit more. Not to say he's not well written, but I just think he's so.
It's funny because he's
It's
probably the
just
least well-written character in his
arc.
own show.
It's his beginning arc of becoming like that hero type character where right now he's just a survivor, right? So he steals, he borrows money from people, or he runs away. So you're seeing that, and then at the tail end, you see him become sort of this low level hero, especially to Vix. Is it Vix or Bix?
Bix.
It's Bix.
Yeah.
Okay, because through her the Diego Luna's accent, it was like, is it Vix? I don't know. But I kept forgetting at the end of each episode, he's an executive producer for this whole show, which I think is really cool. Which I find funny because his character's not the best written character in this show. But that's like a whole nother thing.
Well, that's one of those complaints that is, it's very hard for me to separate that because it's like the worst written character in the show is Cassian Andor, but the writing for him is still
producing it.
But the writing for him is still so far above what you get for most shows, it's hard to call that a criticism.
Oh, for
it's
sure.
Like, you're the worst written character on a great written show. So I don't. It just sucks that he's the lead. But I think Cassian's a really interesting character for a couple reasons. So you meet him, and okay, so you sympathize with him. He's a mama's boy. He's looking for his sister. He's got a good relationship with his ex. So, he's probably somewhat kind-hearted in a way. He's got a soft side. Oh, he's good to droids. People are dicks to droids in this universe. So he's got some good sides. But he's also a womanizer. He borrows money he doesn't intend to pay back for a really long time. He's a criminal. He murders people in cold blood. And that's why I got on the side of Cyril Karn pretty early on this show. Because I see this guy who works for the Empire who's really law and order, black and white morality. And I'm like, yeah, Cassian does deserve to be brought to justice, really. In terms of the law, he did break the law, and I know he's the lead, and he joins the rebels, and he becomes a good guy. But at this point in the show, at the beginning, he does kind of deserve to be brought in for what he did, for killing those guards. Not that I blame him, because the guards were corrupt too. It's a very complex situation, but Cyril Karn also was right. And
yeah. Should we just go through like our favorite characters real quick?
Sure.
Or should we go through our favorite moments or favorite characters?
First,
no, you go. You say what you're going to say.
I'll start with Cyril because I'm already on to him. And I know a lot of people, you included, you told me, weren't huge on Cyril just because he did nothing for most of the season. But I also think that's one reason I do like him. Because the show, I think Cyril Karn is the most relatable character in the Star Wars franchise. So picture this, you have an overbearing mother who you spent a lot of your childhood ready to get away from. You finally get off to the big time doing the job you always wanted to do. And then you screw up so badly, you flame out, have to go live back at mom's place, join the family business, sit around in her house all day eating cereal.
There's other foods. There's other foods, man. Like he's like always going for like the Cocoa Puffs. And I know it's like an acting thing too because you don't want to eat as much on the show, but
yeah.
He puts so little like cereal in the bowl.
And the blue milk.
I don't know, it's just really funny to me. But cuz like in real life, I eat cereal all the time. I fill it all the way to the top. Yeah. I don't know if you do this, if anybody else does it, but he puts like so little in it. I find it really funny.
Yeah. It is true. I tend to fill it halfway myself. But the reason I liked him being at his mom's place all season, well, first of all, those scenes weren't even boring. The conversations with his mother were really eye-opening looks into his character and kind of getting to see him at his lowest point, which was really cool. But it also made his ending all the more powerful because we see the very first arc of the series, he's a sniveling little brat and he totally loses his nerve in the Battle of Ferrix, gets a lot of his men killed, screws up so horribly, he gets fired. And then in the last episode, he's got laser focus, rushes into the thick of the action, saves Dedramiro, fearlessly. He's come a long way just with his devotion. And that whole middle bit is kind of, it's interesting enough that you still care about him, but you're building up that anticipation. You're supposed to feel as annoyed as he is watching him sit around eating cereal, talking to his mother. And you like the whole season, you're like, I want to see this guy do something. So when he finally does, it hits all the sweeter. Which I can transition that a little bit into just the show in general. A lot of people complain about the show's slow pacing, me included a little bit. It is a very slow-paced show, but it's not meaninglessly slow-paced. Every episode, even if it feels like nothing's happening, is setting up characters or worlds or plot developments that'll be important later. It's all building to something. And yeah, you can skip right to episode 3, where Cyril finally finds Cassian and they have that big explosive blowout, or episode 6, the one where they finally go on the heist, or episode 9, the breakout or like 10, the breakout episode, or episode 12 where the rebellion finally starts. But those don't hit near as hard without all those other episodes to make us really give a damn about this world and its characters. Because this is maybe one of the first times in Star Wars where I've ever watched, once the action finally goes down, and I actually cared about everybody. And I was worried that they might die because you spent all these hours building them up. I haven't had that kind of emotional investment in Star Wars in a couple decades nearly. Since Revenge of the Sith, probably. Just built it up. No, since Ahsoka.
Sorry,
Ahsoka's the last one, I think.
Yeah.
Where I was like,
sorry, I just freaked out.
Or did I?
I just freaked out on screen because I found out who Avril Skeen was, the guy who got shot by Cassian in episode 6. He's in Punisher. I didn't realize because he's got the big beard. He's the big beard and the long hair. He's that guy. He looks so different. Wow. He's much taller than I thought he was compared to John Bernthal and next to Diego Luna in this. Wow. He's so good. He's really good. But yeah, I agree with exactly what you said, because this could have easily been 6 episodes, man. It could have just been like another mediocre show, but these writers take their time with the characters, especially with the heist arc. And for me, what I really loved about that arc is because you got to know these characters, but they weren't boring. Like you understood their backgrounds, you understood they all had different philosophies on everything. And one of the tropes that I hate in movies and television shows all the time is like the liar reveal trope. Like Cassian gets found out, he's not part of the cause, he's there to be paid, but he brings it out on himself, and he's like, and it's not one of those things where then they separate and then they come back near the end, like a final thing. He's like, no, I'm telling you, I'm getting paid for this.
They're just on the way to the heist.
And and I don't want to be looking over my shoulder, because he gets found out he has a kyber crystal, which is a huge kyber crystal in his on his necklace as like a down payment. I just thought it's really good character. It's just a good show set in the Star Wars universe. And I think my favorite character is Dedra Miro. I think she's the best villain that I've seen in a long time. I think she's so well written.
Agreed.
She's able to outsmart people in her own in the ISB, especially that one guy, the other supervisor. I don't have his name right here, but he's looking over Ferrex. Ferrex? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Ferrex, yeah. He's looking over Ferrex. She wants to look at an item that Cassian stole that's on there, but he keeps blocking her off because that's her jurisdiction, or that's what he's supervising. But she's constantly being told no, where she could obviously help the Empire, and she's just trying to do her job really well. And I love that the main supervisor, Major Paradagas, the main supervisor, the guy from Game of Thrones, he sees it as well, where he's not just like shooing her off because she's out of line. He's like, this is actually good intelligence.
Prove it now.
And I loved how I loved how when she provides evidence, is like, Ferrex will now be handed over to Supervisor Miro, as it's obviously become a distraction for you, Supervisor. I was like, yes! He's too obsessed with putting down Miro, and I think it's great. And I love how he has, like, a little bit of, he's got a little bit of clout as well near the end, because the driver is, for, Mon Mothma, is spying, for him.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
That was really cool. Yeah, that's who the supervisor was.
Oh no, you're
talking to near the end.
Yeah, now I remember. Okay, yeah, they were talking to each other. One thing I like about Dedra Meero is how the show sets her up in the first few episodes as an underdog. You want to root for this lady to break into the ranks of ISB and show her worth by uncovering this vast conspiracy of rebellion. And you see her tenacity. She's a little overambitious and a little... Yeah, but you root for her anyway. But then she gets to the top pretty quick, and then she goes full-on fascist, and you're like, ooh, she's
a horrible person.
She's evil. How did I root for this
She's a horrible
woman?
person, but she's so much fun to watch. It's, I don't know what it is. I think because just the actress is so talented, and that torture scene. Again, it's just great direction again, where you don't hear what she hears, and it's just shown through the actress's face of like, what is the horror? And that doctor, he's like, oh my god, he's not playing it like being creepy or whatever. He's just like, we actually found some sounds. It was like quite fascinating. Like, he's just passionate about what he found, and but he's not like being crazy about it. And that to me is scarier and creepy. It's just more crazy.
What was the story? It was the dying, the sounds of the dying children ringing out.
Dying children,
goes insane.
But the actress for Bix, Adria Arjona, I wasn't that into her for the first few episodes, but once she got into like that torture room and just the last few episodes, I was like, holy shit.
Lost her freaking mind.
Good.
Yeah.
Lost her mind. And, oh, that's funny. Here on Google, the Mon Mothma picture is the original actress, but it says her name at the bottom. I guess they didn't. That's funny.
Oopsie.
But another, I think, my favorite character in this whole... Oh, I never said what I thought about Karn. I had such high hopes for him. Like, I loved Karn because he was a guy who just believed in the system and wanted to have the Empire work. And that's so fresh to see in the Star Wars universe where... Because especially in the games, you see people who work in the Empire, and then they see the Empire's wrongdoings, and then they defect to the Rebels, which is so overplayed now.
True.
But Karn just completely believes in the system, and I loved it. And I understand, I understand, I actually kind of like the storyline he went through, especially now he has, like, a weird crush on Miro. Like,
I got thoughts on that.
Like, they have a weird love story now, where it's kind of interesting, because you don't see that in the Empire in a lot of media, where you see maybe a budding romance happening, but it feels a little forced.
No, I love those two together so much. I want this fascist power couple so much. Gimme in season 2. They were going to team up and go after Andor together. They're probably going to be a tag team villain in season 2, and I'm all for that. I want to see more of them.
I wasn't too bored with him. I was just like a little disappointed and wish he was on the team more of finding Cassian, but now he definitely will be. It was all to tell an overall character arc, which I appreciated. But Dedra Meero, I loved her. I don't know why. She's a great character. She's a terrible person, but I loved to watch her on screen.
Just so people don't attack me, I'm gonna go back and defend myself for something else. Going back to Kenobi, I talked a lot of crap about Reva. This is what I wanted to see from Reva, is a character like Dedra Meero. Don't crap. People may have said, he's being hard on her because she's a woman or whatever, and he doesn't think a woman can be a compelling villain. No, that was a badly written villain. This is a good one.
It's crazy, man. It's
Dedra Meero is one of my favorite Star Wars villains of all time. She's fantastic.
She might be second for me. Well, no, maybe it's just recency bias, but for me it's like Vader and now Meero. I don't know why. even though there's so many great ones later on.
I'm a fan of
But
Thrawn.
I think my favorite.
I'm a Thrawn fan myself. Thrawn is
Oh
up
yeah,
there
Thrawn.
for sure.
Yeah. He was
Yeah.
good from the little I've seen him.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think he's a very good villain. Before I get to my favorite, I just want to shout out the heist arc, and those characters are really good. Vel, I think, is really. She's not. She's like she's the leader of the group, but she gets questioned all the time, but she doesn't put up with it. She's like, "This is what's happening. Deal with it," and I love that. You just see, she gives no fucks, and I love how her relationship with Cinta Kaz is secretive, subtle, and she wants it's subtle. I love that it's subtle, and Vel obviously wants it to be like a little bit more of a budding romance, but Cinta is very into the cause right now, and she's very into the rebel. Well, it's not the alliance anymore, but the rebellion.
What'd she tell Vel something about? Yeah, we agreed only when there's time. When there's time, well, the cause first, and us whenever there's any other time.
That made me sympathize with Vel a little bit, because she just wants to be happy, but they're in a world where they can't really sit down and be happy right now.
Yeah. Oh, that scene where Cinta threw it in her face that she's a spoiled rich girl who can leave the cause anytime she wants.
She's like, that's not fair. Well,
kind of is. She did.
And I wanted to
see her go back to Coruscant.
She did. Yeah, she did go back.
Yeah, she goes to hang out with Mon Mothma on Coruscant in her designer clothes. And
I was kind of like, is she related to Mothma? No, that would be too easy. And then you see her talk to Mothma, and I went, I fucking knew it. Like right away, I was like, I fucking knew it. I don't think it's not lazy, but I thought that was a cool connection.
Oh yeah, I just want
they're sisters. Yeah. That means Vel's dead in the future. Everybody.
They're cousins.
No, they're sisters, aren't they?
Oh, they were cousins.
They're sisters.
Cousins.
Hold on. I'll look it up.
Okay.
Well, the daughter calls Vel aunt. Vel.
Oh.
And Mothma. But that's also like a nickname. Relationship? Oh, they are cousins. Well, what the fuck, daughter? See? Now I hate the daughter more. See, I thought they were cousins too, but she called her.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm gonna jump back. I'm gonna jump back a little bit, because I also want to give this show. I just want to give extra props to the show for how it writes its female characters, because once again, I know we talked a lot of crap about bad female writing, so I have to take extra time to call this show out for being really good, because we don't do that very often. So the women on this show are written excellently, I think, because they're actually treated as individual characters with their own motivations. Mon Mothma isn't just going to pick up a blaster and start shooting up guys. That's not who she is. Other shows probably would have written her that way, just because of how they try to present women as being just as capable in all scenarios as guys are. But guys aren't like that either. I couldn't just pick up a blaster and start shooting. That's not who I am. I'd probably be more like Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma is not like Dedra Meero, who's not like Bix, or who else was Vel. There's a lot of variety of characters in this show. Oh, Marva is another one. The mother figure.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's
it's good to see that.
Yeah.
It's good to see that actress in a positive parent role, because when you go from Harry Potter to here, it's so different. She's like a terrible aunt in Harry Potter, but a lovely stepmom.
Yeah. Let's talk about
her speech in the final episode.
Lord.
Did you hear that? Did you hear that the final line wasn't "fight the Empire"? It was called. She said "fuck the Empire" on stage, but then they redubbed it because they thought. I thought it would have been cool, but I think "fight the Empire" is a more impactful speech or impactful line.
But I can see what they were going for with it, but I know it would have, and I read the reason they took it out was because people would have harped on the use of the line, because swearing's not common in Star Wars. And I agree, it would have taken away from the moment, because I would have thought the same thing.
They say shit a lot in this show. They say shit a few times.
Yeah, I just would have noticed it and been taken out of the moment. And I don't want to be taken out of that moment, because that moment's one of the most I've ever been roused in maybe anything.
Yeah.
Just when the rebellion's building up, she's giving the speech. I'm like, I want to punch something. I want to kick a guy off a tower.
Like the guy, the construction worker guy, Brasso. Yeah. He uses her like funeral stone to like whack a dude in the face.
There is so much metaphor.
She's fighting as well.
There is so much metaphor in that. That stone was, I think, the remains of her cremated ashes all put together in a stone. So literally, he cracked everything. He cracked everything she had over that guy's head. Mm-hmm. All of her went into fighting the Empire in the end. It's so metaphorically beautiful, and it made me just emotional. Because it was so,
Just to go back to strong, like a subtle, very strong female written character moment was, even though Kaz, Val's girlfriend, doesn't get a lot of screen time, she has one that's really, really smart. She gets found out by the spy that she's spying on. Oh yeah, near the end of episode 12, and right away she stabs him in the heart. I was like, yes. There's no, like, because whenever that usually happens, you see people just go, like, I'm not, like, try to back themselves in the corner. But she's like, oh, I'm found out. I'm just going to kill you right here. I was like, thank God.
No, Andor is good because its characters behave like real people. You're found out, you stab a guy. You screw up, you die. You have consequences. When Bix's boyfriend Tim screwed up in episode 1, he died. When anyone screwed up on the Aldani heist, they died.
To be fair, he died. That guy's an idiot. He was warned 3 times to stay where he was, and he charges at people with rifles. Come on, man.
Yeah, but
I know you're upset.
But that's why I think it's good writing, because not all their characters behaved stupidly. That guy was an idiot.
Yeah.
Not all the characters were idiots, so that tells me he was written well. I
got really nervous. I got really nervous in episode 2 when she like took off her coat. I was like, we're not about to watch a sex scene in Star Wars, are we? But they cut forward ahead, but so you just assumed. So you're like, oh, okay.
That's the closest to a sex scene we've ever had.
I love how the boyfriend was just kind of like, I got a rat on Andor, but let me have sex with my girlfriend first.
Why not?
Just like, let me do this first. Might as well. I thought he did pretty. Apparently, he's been in Star Wars before as well as an X-wing pilot for the sequel series. Very minor role. Oh wow! But the characters aren't attached in any way, but they could be distant relatives.
Like Kino and Snoke.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Andy Serkis has nothing to do
with
Snoke.
Kino becomes Snoke?
I saw theories like that.
Man,
when I was watching week to week.
My favorite episodes are definitely the heist and the prison break. Those have to be the best. Just when the heist happens and the visual effects of the meteor shower going ahead.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It could have been so basic. It could have been so basic. Just add some orange and meteor. It's like all different colors of the green and like blue, flashes of blue and orange. That's why you feel that the locals have this sort of religious element to it.
They built it up for 2 episodes. It needed to pay off.
So beautiful. And it kind of reminded me, in a positive way, it reminded me of Solo a little bit when they're doing the Kessel Run, where he's flying into the meteor shower and there's all the colors flying by. I don't think I saw one visual effects problem throughout this whole show.
Oh, me neither. That's another thing. I always whine about visual effects. This show completely immersed me. I don't complain about special effects this time.
And it made TIE fighters scary.
Oh,
When they just hear it off in the distance and it goes over them and you can see it's so deafening loud.
I read that one was a rule of 3.
You know what? This show's great. I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind. The show's
awesome.
Great.
Episode 4, they just heard it off in the distance. Episode 5, it went by them. Episode 6 went by the firing. It built up in that arc, just the TIE fighter. First you hear it, then you see it, then... Sorry, more like... I can't do a good sound effect.
And what I love about both episodes is there are consequences. Where, in the heist one, the guy doesn't cover him long enough, so the stormtrooper, or the ex-stormtrooper character gets killed right away, and the lieutenant gets blasted off. There's no like, oh, I got shot in the arm and I'm hurt. No, they're just dead. And especially in the Prison Break where, and they said it a line earlier, I'd rather die fighting than die doing what they want me to do.
Yeah.
And I bet you in any other mediocre show, the main characters that we'd follow throughout the arc would have been fine. But you see, like, the characters at Cassian's table, most of them die. They just get shot and then they're instantly dead. And I love that. There are consequences in this world. And I love that. It needs to be... Writers need to not be afraid to kill off their characters.
Yeah, because it makes stakes. And like I said before, not just kill off characters, but have characters' stupid decisions have consequences too. Don't just let plot armor save people. Like, I also
it's
love
what Kenobi needed.
Yeah. I also love even when people don't screw up, bad things can still happen to them. Like in episode 7, when Cassian finally got out of all... He got away with killing those security guards. He got away from the Empire. He did the Aldani heist. Everything was fine. And then he just watches some guys run away and get sentenced to prison just for being there. I love that. He did deserve punishment for something, like I said, but the fact that he got busted and sent to jail from a kangaroo
he got busted
court,
for something completely different.
Nothing. He
At
didn't
first,
do anything.
because it's more explained later on where he just gets thrown in jail for basically doing nothing, but it's just set up later on because these people just need workers to build their stuff for them. Spoilers, Joe. No. But yeah, and you find out in a post-credit scene at the very end what those things will be using for. And I don't know why it didn't click into my brain where it was like, it's probably the Death Star. But then you see it being almost built. So you're not that far off from Rogue One, ladies and gentlemen. And I've heard Season 2 is going to start a year after we left off here. It's not going to pick up right away.
I heard Season 2 is going to take place over the next 4 years and end just before Rogue One. So it's probably going to be...
So it's only going to be 2 seasons?
Yeah, so I guess
That's
the next
so
season...
disappointing.
So I think the next season is 12 episodes, and I'm going to assume that because there's 4 years between now and Rogue One, it's going to be 3-episode arcs for every year up to Rogue One, and the last one, I think I heard them say, is going to end on the mission he was on when Rogue One started.
That's a great tie-in.
So to me, if I was ever going to say to someone who didn't mind doing a little bit of homework, honestly, I think the way I'd get someone who's never seen Star Wars into Star Wars, I'd say, look, if you don't mind watching a 12-episode TV show, watch Andor, because it sets up what the Empire's like from the little guys, and then you go into Rogue One and see the consequences of that, and then Rogue One ties immediately into A New Hope, so you get to see the Jedi and the Sith lore and see what's really going on now, and then that balloons into Empire, where the rebels are getting their asses kicked, and then that balloons into Return of the Jedi, where everything comes to a head and the Empire is crushed. So it's kind of like a greater than symbol for our audio listeners. It starts off really small at the beginning of Andor, Season 1, Episode 1, and kind of just, if you watch Andor, Rogue One, and the original trilogy, it just balloons to the Empire's destruction.
Yeah, I kind of agree. That's a lot of homework, though.
If you wanted to.
For somebody. If you wanted to, yeah.
If
I always say start with the original trilogy first, but... Yeah.
I'd also say start with Rogue One. If you didn't want to watch Andor, I think Rogue One's a good starting point, too. Because it feels a lot like A New Hope, but it's also modern effects and modern pacing and...
Yeah, for sure. I think Rogue One, without a doubt, has the best visual effects out of all the movies.
That whole third act.
Oh, brilliant. It's so good. It saved the movie. But yeah, we're not wrapping up, but before we wrap up, I gotta say my favorite character has to be Luthen. Stellan Skarsgård. Man, he's so
we haven't talked
brilliant.
about him once. So good.
He's... The way he is like a little spy in his own shop, and you gotta talk about the Easter egg shop, my god. There's the armor for Starkiller, there's like the headdresses Padme wears.
Oh, wow.
There's other things that I don't remember. There's a Jedi Temple Guard helmet. There's a bubble shield from from like Jar Jar Binks, the Naboo people in Phantom Menace.
Oh wow!
There's a lot of little trinkets. It's great, and I love how he puts on like a different character when he's on Coruscant, and then he goes behind the scenes and he's back into Luthen. And again, he's not afraid to sacrifice 30 people for everybody else, for the cause. And there's something I really loved about Andor where they talk about this rebel team that they're willing to sacrifice throughout the whole show, and
Oh,
you
yeah,
never see
yeah.
them. You never see it. You just see the behind the scenes the whole time. And Luthen even goes up to Saw, and he's like, it's not that I don't want to sacrifice you. You just matter more to the cause than this other dude right now.
Yeah.
But I'm willing for this other guy to die.
This other guy's been busted by the Empire already. They know he's coming. So if they...
You haven't.
And his spy said they have a plan in place. So if this Krieger guy backs out, they'll know somebody on the inside's compromised them. It's more worth 30 guys dying than their spy on the inside of ISB getting compromised. Which, one of the best scenes in the entire show is when... Oh, I also love the reveal of Lonnie being the spy, because I did recognize him. He was in, like, every scene, the ISB scenes, when... he was in the background of, like, every scene. The guy with the mustache, Luthen spy.
Yes. Yeah.
He was there the entire time, and they even showed camera angles of his face when he was there. So I think going back and watching this show, you're
Brilliant.
like, oh, okay, so this is what he was doing the whole time. And that's maybe... I don't want to say it's the best scene in the show because there's so many great scenes, but when he's telling Luthen, yeah, I want out. I got a family to take care of now. And Luthen says, no, you don't get out.
No, bad boy. I need you.
There's no out of this.
Just another, one of the only action scenes in the show is when he's escaping the tractor beam. It's just
yes.
like another brilliant... And he's got the lasers on the side of his ship where, yeah, it's just almost... Someone said it best in a podcast, but it's like the Millennium Falcon in Empire Strikes Back, but if it worked. if it worked. True. This is how you're supposed to get away from them. But yeah, I just think his ship is really cool. Fuck, man. This is a good show. It's just a well-written show. It's not anything like huge spectacle if you're expecting to go into this as a Star Wars fan. It's grounded. It's just a well-written and directed show for set in the Star Wars universe. And one of my favorite characters is Kino Loy, Andy Serkis. He has his own arc where he just wants to finish his service days, his shifts, and then get out of there. But then they realize that once you get out, they just send you to a completely different prison, and you work on the same thing. And as soon as he has that realization, he's full on in with Cassian. And it's a great moment in the end of the episode when the old man dies, and Cassian says, how many guards are there on each level? And he just right away goes, no more than 12. And that's how it ends. I was like, fuck, yes, let's go. That got me hyped up. Because he doesn't want any trouble.
It was even more sad in retrospect, though, that the entire time they're chanting one way out, the reason he was kind of hesitant the whole time is because he knew he couldn't swim. He knew the moment he got into this, he was never getting out of that prison. But that's what made it all the more powerful. That's kind of what this show is about. It's all these people with their own motivations realizing that for the Empire to be defeated, they have to put their own selfish desires aside and work as part of a team to accomplish a greater good. They have to make, whether it's guys like Krieger getting sacrificed for the cause and they don't even realize it, or people like Kino Loy or Marva or Bix with the torture, or Mon Mothma having to sacrifice her own daughter to a scoundrel just for some extra money for the rebellion. Everybody in this show has to make sacrifices for the cause, even if it ruins their lives. And that's really what the main idea of it is. And I think why that's so powerful to me is because Andor is uncomfortably real at times. I don't know if you had this, but there were so many scenes where from Mon Mothma's political meeting, she's talking to her friends and she has conversations that I heard on the news a lot, specifically around Donald Trump's presidency in the US. I heard a lot of these conversations about the failings of democracy. Still hearing them. It's still getting worse. Or at the end when Marva's whole speech about fight the Empire and these guards are firing on the unarmed crowd who are just protesting. They're getting shot up just for being in their own city. And not that I'm justifying riots or anything, but it all feels like I've seen this on the news in real life all happen in modern day my society. And it's a little too real. But it's not heavy-handed about it either. It's still trying to just be a sci-fi story. It's not saying you need to think this way about the modern world and where we're at. It just tells its story, but draws its parallels just enough that I understand what it's going for. It's about our society's failing democracy and growing unrest, and how our governments seem to be slowly trying to power grab and get more greedy, and the rich are taking over and lobbying the government, and the average people are losing more control all the time, it seems like. And people are just generally angry, and we don't even know what we're angry about a lot of times. But just in general, everybody I know has this tension that may burst someday. I don't even know what we're tense about, but everyone's just, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The world's just at a very delicate point, and Andor is the right show at the right time to address these problems, but with the same story Star Wars has ever told. It made the classic rebellion against tyrannical people willing to crush our freedoms. It's made that story relevant again, 50 years on from the original. And that's why I told you I was going to get into this before the show started. But
here we go.
Yeah, that's why I don't think Star Wars fans deserve Andor. The Star Wars fan base are a bunch of whiny babies, man. We are never freaking pleased with anything. Even as far back as Return of the Jedi. Oh, the Ewoks are too childish. The prequels, oh, there's too much CGI. The writing's not as good as the originals, whatever. The sequels, oh, it ruined everything. Oh, Rogue One, oh, that's pretty good, but the first 2 acts suck. Only the third one's worth watching. Oh, the Clone Wars, oh, that's okay. Rebels, oh, that sucks. Kenobi, Book of Boba Fett, it's all shit. Yeah, just every Star Wars is shit. The only thing Star Wars fans can agree on in the last 50 years of the franchise are that A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back are good movies. And I've even heard some criticisms of A New Hope. Oh, it's too slow paced. It's not even that good. And these are people who I know who have watched Star Wars their whole life. And I'm like, do you even like Star Wars? You criticize literally everything coming out. The people I know, people on the internet. Like, what do people actually like about Star Wars? I don't know. Because nobody seems to like anything. And even a show like Andor, which is objectively the best written Star Wars since 1980, people still have problems with it. Oh, it's a little too slow burn. Oh, there's not enough action. Oh, it doesn't feel like Star Wars. That one really pisses me off. I hear so many people say, doesn't feel like Star Wars. What the fuck feels like Star Wars if this doesn't? No, really, that's a real question. This is the most Star Wars feeling thing we've ever gotten. Outside of George Lucas's original 6. I don't know what you people want. I don't know what I want. I've been on the toxic side of the fan base too. You've heard me talk about stuff. I try not to be toxic about it, but I can be. I've been on all sides of these discussions, defending it and ripping it apart. And I've disliked a lot about it too, but I try to look for the good in a franchise I love. But I don't know what it is about Star Wars fans in particular that just can't seem to find anything to love. You look at a franchise like Star Trek, there's been a lot of crap in there too. Or other franchises like Doctor Who, or I don't know what else is popular. Game of Thrones, we've been talking about a lot lately. Any popular franchise, there's a lot of bad in it, obviously, but people tend to agree. Star Trek fans think, yeah, Star Trek Discovery's pretty bad. The later Next Generation movies, pretty bad. The odd-numbered ones, pretty bad. Doctor Who, The Chris Chibnall era, Jodie Whittaker, not that great, really. How's Game of Thrones? The last few seasons, not so good. Last season in particular, pretty much ruined everything.
Trash.
People can agree on that. These fan bases, maybe they have their toxic sides, but they can all agree more or less what's good about their franchise and what the bad stuff is. Star Wars fans, you get wildly different opinions with literally every entry. So I don't know what people see in this franchise or what they like about it. Just don't go into Andor saying it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Just don't watch it.
Yeah, I don't.
Never watch Star Wars again if
what
that's
it
how you're
is.
going to be. I don't want you in this fandom. I don't want to be a part of this fandom, actually. No, forget it. Stay in the fandom. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to talk about Star Wars. I don't want to. I don't want to interact with Star Wars fans. I'll rant about it on this podcast, but in real life, I have no inclination to talk about Star Wars because it always turns into a shit show, and I'm sick of it. All right, I think I've said my piece.
Breathe, Joe. Breathe. But I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it's just because when someone, they've been the loudest since Last Jedi, which me and Joe both agree, it's a good movie. All right.
No.
Everybody,
shit.
shut up.
No.
It's not. It's not.
No. Don't.
I think it's a good movie.
No.
I think it's a good movie.
Don't get that on the internet that I think Last Jedi is a good movie. It's my least favorite in the whole franchise.
I thought you said it was good.
No. It's my least favorite in the whole franchise. We'll talk about it.
Interesting. Alrighty. Man, might have been confusing you with somebody else. But it's as soon as something happens where, I think it's just because they're so popular, and as soon as something happens where a certain someone doesn't like what happens in the show, they immediately get on social media and just yell about it, where this has ruined Star Wars, it's ruined everything. It's just like an ego problem, because people connect so much to the original trilogy and what happened there, where it was a perfect story arc with maybe a few minor things that weren't that great. But as soon as something like bad happens in later, or whenever they're like, oh, since Disney's bought Star Wars, it's never been good, which is not true. There's been some really good stuff. I think Force Awakens is an excellent movie. There's problems in The Last Jedi, but I really like it. Rise of Skywalker was just a shit show, rushed production near the end, and J.J. Abrams had no choice but to direct this rushed piece of thing, and he did a decent job about it. Book of Boba Fett, I don't know what happened. That's trash to me. I don't know what happened there. Kenobi, there's parts I really loved and parts I didn't like, which is a lot of what shows are. But with Andor, it's just really well-grounded storytelling, and I think just because it's smart, people can't... There's not a lot of people who can take in like smart dialogue like that all the time. I'll be honest with you, first time watching Game of Thrones, there was a lot of times that I missed a lot of world building because most of it's just dialogue. But when you go back to it and you've gone through the whole series, you start to appreciate that dialogue. So I think it's just some people need to take it with a grain of salt. Just be smarter. Just like appreciate the media that you're watching and look at it objectively. Don't look at it as, just because it's completely different characters and there's no Jedi or there's no Lukes, there's no Hans, and it's just a good show. It's just sadly the Star Wars haters or the Star Wars fans that are toxic and hate on it a lot. They are the most loudest of any community ever, and that's just what's sad about it.
I think you're right in saying that it's an ego problem. We all love Star Wars for our own reasons, and Star Wars more than any other franchise its fans seem to bring in their own baggage with every single installment more than anything else. It's like a lot of us are incapable of just watching a new Star Wars thing objectively and taking it for what it is. We all think it has to be a certain way, or that's how it feels anyway. But Andor objectively is one of the best shows I've seen on TV this year in many years, really. It's just really well done in general, and I'm glad it exists, even though I didn't want it. So shows what the fans know. If we go based on what the fans want, we wanted Kenobi.
Honestly.
Look how that turned out. We wanted Kenobi. We wanted Book of Boba Fett. Nobody wanted Andor. It's the best of the bunch.
I didn't want Book of Boba Fett. I was one of those people who've never liked Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Which is like, what, 5% of the Star Wars community?
Well, anyway, unless you have more to say, I'm ready to wrap up.
He doesn't do anything. Sorry, I already said this in Book of Boba Fett. He doesn't do anything in the original trilogy. Puts a tracking device on the Millennium Falcon. That's all he does. He literally does nothing.
All right, you good to go?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right.
Unless you want to spend the next hour talking about why Last Jedi is a good movie.
No.
Or is that a different one?
No, that's a... I really don't like
debate.
that movie.
There's bad parts in it. I admit it.
No. Look, just so I don't sound like a hypocrite. Last Jedi is my least favorite thing in the whole franchise, and I still have parts I like a lot about it. Like I don't write it off entirely, but it is my least favorite thing in the franchise.
You think it's worse than Solo and Attack of the Clones, though?
Yes.
That's wild to me.
I think it does more damage to the franchise than both those movies. I'll get into it another time. It's not. I'll go on for another hour.
I think the producers did more damage.
I can go on. We
will talk about it off.
Yeah.
We will talk about it off podcast, but you guys won't hear it.
I am very much not a fan of the sequels in general, but
yeah, that's true.
Any of them
missed the mark. They fly now. Anyway, you can find me at Ryan Walker Official on where do you find me? On TikTok and on Instagram.
The internet. Somewhere.
Also, you can find me on just, Ryan Walker Official. I don't know how it works now on YouTube, because you can do an @ on YouTube now, but my name's just Ryan Walker on the YouTube channel as well. I might be doing streams soon, so that'll be a little fun to do. But yeah, go ahead, Joe.
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at ThoughtPlay Media. Also, check out the Close Up with Ryan and Joe Facebook page for latest updates on the show. If you listen to us in audio, check out our YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, find us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Also, be sure to leave us comments and reviews, as that's a big help. And how about clicking that like button or sharing if you enjoyed this? We hope to see you on the next Close Up with Ryan and Joe, where we share with you our latest leisure lists. Till next time.
Take care. You think Last Jedi is worse than...